Hello everybody out there on YouTube, and welcome to the third event of this week's Daytona Speedweek for NNSCRA Walmart Cup Series Season 10. Hi, I'm Levi McIntyre, a.k.a. ThrashManiac99, the voice of NNSCRA Walmart Cup Series, here to welcome you to the Gatorade Duels at Daytona, as we are going to determine the remaining lineup for the Daytona 500, as well as 6 more go or go home drivers to make it into the race via where they finished today. 3 in Duel 1, 3 in Duel 2. So this is going to be quite interesting. As you can tell, the lineup is set for the duels based on how they qualified in their sessions. So let's take a look at the top 10. Charles Jackson on the pole. Next to him is Sean Henley. Both of those guys are locked into the Daytona 500. Because they were go or go home drivers that were among the top 3. Anyways, row 2 is Michael Norman and Preston Plord. Row 3, Matt McIntyre, Dylan Thoreau. Row 4 is James Richardson, who made it into the race via on speed and qualifying, so he was the third and final driver to make it into the 500 via session number 1. Next to him is Dylan Poteet, and then row 5 is Anthony Ritchie and Tanner Sullivan. Starting in dead last is Trent Dunham. So this is going to be a big race. Both races 8 laps, short events to get things moving smoothly. But until then, let's go ahead and get the command to fire engines for the Gatorade Duel number 1 race.
Drivers, start your engines.
That sounded like Ellen DeGeneres. Holy crap, is she really here? So, with that said, we are getting set to go racing. For duel number 1. So this should be fun because both of the duel races, the fields are pretty big. 35 cars in each session. So, it's going to be quite hectic. But this is going to be pales in comparison to the Daytona 500 when you have the full 42 car field. And keep in mind, this is the final season of Walmart Cup that I'm going to be doing as far as more than 50 people in the series. Next season, we'll do just 50, and we'll go from there. So, just a forewarning. So, there will be 20 rides here that will not be around next season. I haven't decided which of those are going to be at this point. But you'll know once sign-ups for Season 11 would happen, which will happen during All-Star break for when we hit to the All-Star races. But it's interesting, Charles Jackson, who did win this race, I believe, if I remember right, it was either Season 7 or Season 8 when he won the Daytona 500. So this is going to be an interesting thing for him because he's locked into the 500 in his first season since Season 8. And I do believe it was Season 8 that he won the 500. So let's see how he's going to do here in the duel. But here we go. Boogity, boogity, boogity. Let's go racing. And as I forgot to mention, Charles Jackson, as long as he keeps his car intact, as far as keeping it on track, he'll get to keep the pole spot. But if he's wrecked and forced out of the race, he will have to start the race in the back of the pack. So that did lap number 1 complete, and Matt McIntyre up at the front right now. So pretty much whoever wins the duel will get to start 3rd in the Daytona 500, and the rest of the results will determine who's going to start on the inside lane for the race. For the most part, because of course there's a lot of the go-go homers in these events that some people will end up starting somewhere else, somewhere different. Now up at to the lead now is Austin Mongold in the 16. Right now, people are trying to get the proper lines going, but they're just going everywhere, which way possible. Sean Henley, pretty much most people would consider him right now the most talked about rookie this season because, like I said, he is a legend in the NNSCRA, but he has never ran the Walmart Cup Series, and this is his first season in Walmart Cup. And already he's made a name for himself by qualifying his way into the Daytona 500, the biggest race of the season outside of the season finale, which this season is going to be somewhere different. I actually forget what track it is, but with that said, Matt McIntyre leads again with 5 to go here in duel number 1. As cars are trying their hardest to get up there, and we got a couple of them coming into the picture now. Nathan Hudson, Matt Skoenberger working together behind the 24. Carson Scott, another rookie, trying to find his way up there. Anthony Ritchie trying to qualify in. Nathan Hudson with a run to the inside. And Austin Mongold underneath of Matt Skoenberger for 3rd. So positions are getting shuffled quite readily here. Right now here in Gatorade Duel number 1. Nathan Hudson leads that lap, but here comes Austin Mongold once again. Matt Skoenberger was forced 3 wide for a moment. And he's trying to find his way back to the bottom, and now he gets there. Trying to pull in front of Carson Scott and James Qualls. Now he goes down in front of Qualls. Mongold with the lead with Ritchie in 2nd, and now here comes Nathan Hudson, who slams the door on Matt Skoenberger to block him to keep that 2nd spot. But Skoenberger's trying to get his car up into the mix. Right now, the top 3 of the go-go homers that would get in via finishing well would be Nathan Hudson, Matt Skoenberger, and Anthony Ritchie. Hudson with a run to the inside of Mongold for the lead with less than 3 to go here in duel number 1. Whoa, and Skoenberger just went way up. Oh, and now a couple cars going to try to leave the 80 in the dust. That's going to be big because it might cause some big-time shuffling as far as who's going to get into those spots. And now here comes Jonathan Zorleen with help from teammate Emmanuel Hartnett. Both cars from Red Bull Racing trying to make their presence felt. 2 to go here in duel number 1. Three wide for the lead as here comes Zorleen, and now he's up to the front. Hartnett's still right there with him, but now Zorleen going to move up high. Dylan Potee losing the draft. That is not good, so that might have just sealed the deal as far as him not making the race. Now a run to the inside is Trent Dunham. Trent Dunham up to the front now, with Angel Navarro behind him. Navarro is one to go homers. As the white flag is going to be displayed, white flag is out. Last chance for these guys to make some noise. 3 wide for the lead still. Tanner Sullivan with a run. Matt McIntyre in 2nd, or trying to get to 2nd. And Charles Jackson has kept his car on track, so it may look like he's going to be able to stay starting on the pole. But it ain't quite over yet as they're nearly 4 wide. Nathan Hudson tried to make it 4 wide, but he decided to get back down as we are coming out of 4 for the final time. Oh, and we got a massive crash! Carson Scott went upside down, but checkered flag is waving. Matt McIntyre wins Gatorade Duel number 1. Jesse Setti, involved in Carson Scott, still rolled. Oh, Charles Jackson, the pole sitter, was involved. As long as he makes it across the line, which I think he did, he's still going to be able to run on the pole for the 500. Wow, but man, that crash looked brutal. But congratulations to Matt McIntyre for winning duel number 1. So he's going to start 3rd in the Daytona 500. But let's take a look at the rest of the top 10. Tanner Sullivan comes away with a great run in the 2nd spot. He'll get to start 5th in the 500. First of the 3 Go homers to make it in via finishing well. Joseph Strigley finishing 3rd, so he's going to be in the Daytona 500. Anthony Ritchie 4th, and then Blaine Keys in 5th. So those are your 3 Go homers to make it in via finishing results. Strigley, Ritchie, and Keys. Tough break for Nathan Hudson. He was so close, but no cigar. In the 6th spot, 7th was Angel Navarro. He was pretty close. 8th, Michael Walton was just at that point making it up there. Trent Dunham 9th, and a great run for DJ Curtis in 10th. Rest of the top 20 was Matt Skoenberger, Emmanuel Hartnett, Charles Sanford, Preston Plord, not Johnny Gardner, I'm thinking of last season, Jonathan Zorleen, Kyle Matthews, Austin Mongold, Dylan Thoreau, Dorian Facepuncher, Jake Baskinger. Rest of the top 30 was Johnny Gardner, Zach Rogers, James Qualls, James McLeod, Cody Lamas, Joshua Collard, James Richardson, excuse me, I about had a hiccup there, Mason Powers, William Brock, and Dylan Poteet. Charles Jackson actually did have to put the car over the wall, and he didn't get to complete the lap, I guess, officially. So, unfortunately, Charles Jackson will not start on the pole for the Daytona 500, so he's going to have to go to a backup car. Same with Sean Henley, so those 2 right now would start in the final row, and then it is the rest of the field after Michael Norman, and 31st is Jackson Henley, then Carson Scott, and then Jesse Setti. So that does it for duel number 1. Stay tuned as we get the track cleaned up for duel number 2. Welcome back to the Gatorade Duels as we get set for duel number 2, as we are going to determine the outside lane for the Daytona 500. So, with that said, the top 10, Steven Guerrero, who is a rookie, who is locked into the Daytona 500, and if he can keep his car away from being out of the race or over the wall, he'll get to stay on the 2nd spot for the Daytona 500. Next to him, Nick Alton, who is locked into the 500. Row 2, Anthony McCurry and Kyle Keith is locked into the 500, so every other spot behind him is fair game. Row 3, Kevin Shearer and Sky Commons. Row 4, Chris Washer, Brandon Gonzalez, and then row 5 is John Cittadino and Chase Oliver. Starting in dead last for this race is William Duncan. With that being said, let's go ahead and get the command to fire engines for duel number 2.
Drivers, start your engines!
What, all of a sudden Ellen DeGeneres leave and now he had someone else take over? Typical. Getting set to go 8 more laps of racing for the Gatorade Duel day. But we got 2 more events left in Daytona Speedweek. Tomorrow will be Daytona 500 final practice. And then Friday will be the Daytona 500 itself. So, what a week Daytona Speedweek has been. We had a pretty interesting Budweiser shootout race. A great double qualifying session in which we got to see a nice mix of drivers duking it out for go-home spots. And then Gatorade Duel number 1 was a fantastic race, but with a brutal crash coming off of Turn 4 at the end. And yes, unfortunately, Charles Jackson was forced to retire, so he has to go to a backup car for the Daytona 500. Same with Sean Henley. But also, it's a good thing that those drivers that flipped and went in the catch fence were okay. Carson Scott, who went upside down into the fence. Jesse Setti, who went into the fence. Charles Jackson went upside down. Sean Henley took a big hit. So, with that said, let's get duel number 2 underway. Steven Guerrero, right now, was the only car outside of Chase Oliver from Team Heel Motorsports to be in the Daytona 500. Matt Skoenberger came up short from making the 500 in duel number 1. The only other Team Heel Motorsport car in the field is Connor Morgan in the 81, who's starting towards the rear of the field. But it's plenty of time for drivers to make something work. As here we go, boogity, 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 let's go racing again. Kyle Keith leading lap number 1. So whoever finishes highest in this race would get to start 4th in the Daytona 500. Right now, Kyle Keith would be that guy to be in the 4th spot for the 500 lineup. Top 5 had sort of broken away from the remaining drivers of the pack, but that's all going to change here momentarily because things are getting pretty wild right now, as there are cars running 3x3x3 several rows deep. As right now it's Ganassi cars running 1-2 right now, Kyle Keith and Sky Commons. The only Ganassi car that wasn't in this race was Preston Plord in duel number 1, and I can't remember where he ended up finishing. I see a lot of shuffling going on around the back of the middle of the back of the pack. Right now it's pretty much single file among the top 5, but Nick Alton going up high and is about to get passed by Brandon Gonzalez. As right now Kyle Keith he's been leading the entire event, as nobody's been able to make a challenge to him. That's because everybody behind him's just shuffling, not really trying to stay in a line to catch that 42 in order to make something work. Steven Guerrero coming underneath Brandon Gonzalez for the 4th spot, as he's about to get help in the draft by Austin LaPlante and Tim Walsh. Kevin Shearer working with Sky Commons to get up into contention for the lead. So right now, the 3 go-or-go homers that would make it in via finishing positions would be Sky Commons, Kevin Shearer, and Brandon Gonzalez. Nick Alton, Steven Guerrero, Kyle Keith, who are in that top 6, are already in the race. Cars trying to work in formation in the draft to make something happen, as Kyle Keith has led half of this race so far. Steven Guerrero trying to work underneath Nick Alton for the 5th spot as he's getting help from Brandon Gonzalez, and then behind Gonzalez is everybody else in the pack. Dylan Young with help from P.J. Williams trying to get up there as well. But Shearer and Commons still working bumper to bumper almost right behind Kyle Keith, and now a battle for second as here comes Shearer with a run underneath of Commons. And Steven Guerrero got that inside lane going with Dylan Young behind him, working together to try to get up to the front. William Duncan, who started dead last in the field, he's now into the picture. Pretty much goes to show you, no matter how many laps there are in a race, you can get up there as long as you know your moves as far as the draft goes. And William Duncan right now would be the 3rd go-or-go homer to make it in, because he's now up in the top 5. Dylan Young right beside his teammate from Penske, Kevin Shearer, but now here comes William Duncan with a run to the inside underneath the 2. As things start to get a little more dicey, Benjamin Miles losing the pack, so that might have sealed the deal as far as him not making the race. Kind of like what happened to Poteet. Oh man, they are 4 wide! This is exactly what happened in duel number 1 as far as a crash. And there they go! Steven Guerrero got a piece of it. Oh, but they save it! How in the world did they save that? White flag is out, no caution. Just a couple big hits for Steven Guerrero and P.J. Williams, but they're still running on track. No caution. Kyle Keith, still your leader, but William Duncan coming in hot behind. And I see Zach Flickinger trying to get by Sky Commons. Same with JT Bryant. Couple cars trying to make last-minute strides to get into that top 3 for the go-or-go homers to qualify in. It's going to be close, but it looks like Kyle Keith is going to win, but who's going to get the qualifying spot? Oh, it was a photo finish out the line between Flickinger and Shearer, but it was Flickinger that got it. Flickinger got Shearer, but Shearer managed to outbeat JT Bryant. So we have our field set, but congrats to Kyle Keith for winning duel number 2. So he's going to get to start 4th in the Daytona 500. Rest of the top 10, William Duncan, who started dead last in duel number 2. He's going to be in the Daytona 500. Nick Alton with a solid run in 3rd. Sean Galligan with a great run in 4th. Zach Flickinger, the 2nd driver to qualify in. And then Kevin Shearer comes away with a 6th place run, and he will be in the Daytona 500. So that would help to make all the Penske drivers be in the Daytona 500. JT Bryant had the right idea of working with Flickinger, but he just didn't have enough time to get by the 12. Dylan Young, 8th, and then 9th, Jessica Sheldon. And Sky Commons was in that hunt all race long, but ended up coming short, finishing 10th. The rest of the top 20 was Austin LaPlante, Devin Becker, Brandon Gonzalez, John Arndt, Ryan Acosta, Matthew Dalio, Chase Oliver, Chris Washer, Carson Gum, and Tim Walsh. Rest of the top 30 was Chris Michaels, Peachy London, David Rivera, Caleb Farrell, Alex Ferranti, P.J. Williams, James Shelley, Marco Martinez, Seth Cole, Anthony McCrory, and then everybody else that finished were John Cittadino, Steven Guerrero, Connor Morgan, Dougie Shears, and Benjamin Miles. So that does it for our coverage today for the Gatorade Duels. As you will see, the final results of duel number 2, as well as the starting lineup for the Daytona 500. Tomorrow's Daytona 500 final practice, the 10-minute practice session, and then it's the Daytona 500. But until then, this is Levi McIntyre signing off.